Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the No CD Wednesday night webinar. We are so happy to have you here once again tonight. And with me is David. Hello, David.
Hi, how's it going?
Doing well, David. Doing well. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I'll let you introduce yourself in a second. I just want to go over this webinar brought to you by No CD. No CD, a downloadable app that you can get on the Google Play or the iOS, as well as go to treatmyocd.com or nocd.com. Any way that you go about it, you can click some buttons. You can talk to one of our care team members. They can set you up with one of our therapists where you can get teletherapy. And we are in all 50 states. We're working on the world next, and we continue to get more and more insurance companies working with us and covering our services as well. So please feel free to reach out. No one has to suffer with OCD. We want to be there to help. David, why the hell are you here with me tonight? What's going on? Why is it not just me? What's happening?
I'm here because I don't know. I saw a bunch of the advocates doing webinars, and I thought, I went through No CD. I think I finished around September or October around this year.
All right.
And just wanted to kind of advocate more and do webinars and help out because I just really like the progress I saw with the program overall.
So No CD therapy was helpful for you.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. We get a lot of people on these webinars asking about that or asking about how can I sit with an uncomfortable thought or something of that nature. So I think it's great to have you here. And believe me, you can, I'm not going to tell you what to say or not. You can tell people what you're comfortable telling them about your type of OCD and what you went through and everything like that. So I'll leave that piece up to you. But if you see some questions that we get tonight that you just want to grab and talk about your own experience, you're welcome to do something like that too. Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
So yeah, if we want to just go into like my whole experience with OCD,
sure,
if that's all good,
please.
Basically, what happened with me was around May of 2020 this year, kind of when everything went down with the pandemic. I think I was just under a lot of stress due to work, and I really noticed OCD coming out, and then I did officially get diagnosed. So I went to a psychiatrist, got diagnosed with OCD. And was waiting for therapy for like a month. That was in June 2020. And then I wasn't scheduled until July 2020.
Okay.
So I was waiting forever with him to schedule me for a therapist. And I was just like, this is killing me. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, yes, he diagnosed me with OCD tendencies, but all he can do for a psychiatrist is just prescribe medication.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, yeah, I go to him. I'm waiting out in July, and I start ruminating, becoming depressed every day, becoming anxious every day, not understanding the details of OCD because, like,
wait, you're saying that people get depressed when they have OCD? This might be a shocker to people, but hopefully not, because this happens all the time. Okay, continue on. Thank you. Just wanted to point that out to everybody listening who says to me, "Why do I feel depressed when I have OCD?" You're normalizing that right now for everyone that just happens, right? So, okay, yeah, very good.
So anyways, yeah, I become depressed. I become anxious. I start ruminating because I don't really understand what it is. Again, I follow.
Wait, there's ruminating in OCD? Is that what you're also telling me too? Oh, okay, yes, this might shock more people. All right, continue on, David. Continue on.
Okay.
Please, go ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, I followed the guidelines of thinking OCD is, like what Khloe Kardashian thinks of OCD as, like, I have to clean everything. Like, I'm not sure if I even have that because that doesn't fit what I'm feeling. I'm having more of a pure O of basically intrusive thoughts that really just disturb me all the time. To get into a little bit more detail about my type of OCD, I can say just basically I have ROCD and sexual intrusive thoughts where they really just make me feel uncomfortable, and I would panic about it before, thinking something's wrong with me. What if I'm a sick person or things like that? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm waiting out for that psychiatrist, and then I do research on it one day, and I see you guys pop up for No CD, and I see 15-minute free call. I'm like, what's gonna hurt if I call him just to check in? Who knows?
Why not? What the heck?
I call. I get a.
What else are you doing that day, right?
Nothing really. I was taking walks or something. So I call them, and they basically tell me, yeah, we can schedule for you like within the next few days. And I said, next few days, like I've been waiting like a whole month just to see a psychologist. So I basically dumped him and I started going to you guys, and ever since, I really just went through the exact treatment program of it, and I see so many different results. The way I almost see myself through no CD is like, almost like someone who does a weight loss program and comes out with amazing results and really sticks to the program and is motivated to the program. So, yeah, I go through the program, lots of ERP, lots of ACT. We can go into details about that if a lot of people don't know what that is.
Sure. Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Do you still have tough days sometimes though?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say yeah.
Yeah.
My biggest problem now at the moment is staying motivated to do ERP, because the way my brain thinks about it is, okay, I'm going to the gym and I don't want to go to the gym today, but I know, like, if I don't put that progress in, I'm just going to get worse and feel worse with myself.
Right.
That is the biggest thing, which is just motivation in general. I probably definitely don't do enough ERP, but I notice when I do ERP, it's so far down on anxiety, on OCD in general, just completely goes down the amount it was before.
Good.
So yeah, I had OCD, did the whole program, saw results, and I think I even had OCD before around 2019 of, relationship OCD, and existential OCD around that range. I also have Tourette's syndrome, which is super common, I heard, to have OCD with that too.
They do. They have some relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not super major, but yeah, that's basically my story. So I started in July. Really just followed the program, followed my therapist, asked questions, really tried to use more acceptance in things and reach out to my therapist if needed. And basically finished the program with, I believe it was like, I was a 9 out of 10 on depressed, like severely depressed. And then I think it went down to like maybe 1 or 2 at the end of it.
Awesome.
So it was definitely a big drop in there.
Awesome. Someone asked me a question because I asked you, they said, do I still have tough days? Yeah, daily. I mean, geez, daily I have tough days. There's not a day goes by that there isn't something tough that happens. So I asked you that purposely because sometimes people have this notion that once you come out of therapy, everybody's going to be roses and you're going to fart rainbows and all sorts of great things are going to happen. And of course, that's not the case. Our goal is to get you to be like everybody else, right? To know how to handle whatever happens on a day-to-day basis without having to do a compulsion. So there we go.
And I was just basically, I thought even myself coming out of there, I was going to be like cured. Like that was my whole thing of like, oh, they're going to cure me. They're going to cure me. They're going to cure me. And then I got to the point of acceptance of, some people have anxiety every single day of their life. And then maybe one time they have it once or twice a week or so. That's really the difference I saw of, feeling reduced is almost like a cure in a way. Like, because it's so much more less in general, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, David, we're going to go through some of the Q&A here. I did get one from Europe, though, that was sent to me earlier today, and they're in bed right now, but they asked if they could ask a question around the idea of OCD about water and electricity. And they're afraid, what if I leave the window open, it rains, the rain gets onto one of the wires in my home, it causes a fire, and then everything burns down because of me. So, I don't know about you, David. I don't know if you have any wires next to you, but I was thinking I would do an ERP right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to lick my fingers. I'm going to touch all the wires on my computer here and on my monitor, and I'm going to make them all nice and wet and everything like that. So let me just do that. And now we'll see if there will be a fire with us by the end of the session, right? This is a pretty common one, actually. I've treated this with people before. There's lots of things that people can be afraid of with water or electricity. Recently, I spoke to a family who had someone in the family who was afraid, what if his hands were wet and he turned the lights on or off? And would that somehow cause a power surge and a fire? So it's amazing how OCD can get to even just the most trivial things like that. If my hand is too sweaty when I turn the light on, will it cause a power surge and burn the house down, right? And I don't know about your OCD, but I'd be interested in hearing. Did your OCD ever say, hey, David, are you worried today that everyone's going to love you and think you're awesome? Or was it only bad, awful, horrible types of things that happened on a daily basis? So.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. Like even today, I was going in here thinking like, oh God, I'm so nervous to do this for the first time too.
Yeah.
OCD kicks in the way of like, oh God, like, they're not gonna think you have OCD because you're feeling so much better lately. Like you're basically being a fraud going here, speaking for people, and like it goes in that way as well. Again, mine is more of like the way of POCD I can name off and ROCD. But I think I do get a little bit of contamination sometimes, in ways like, for example, yesterday my fiance was we were cleaning the sink and we sprayed Clorox on it, and I went to go drink water, but I didn't want to use that sink because I was thinking, oh God, what if it like contaminates in the water and I drink that and I get sick from something like that. So it goes in all around. Like, yes, it sticks to the main themes of R and P, but sometimes it does get into contamination before I have had the thought of existential of, not to trigger people, but fearing death and dying, like if there was an afterlife or not. And I was going to a therapist before OCD, and she couldn't figure out what I had. Like, so
yeah, well, like, shocker, right? Yeah,
yeah. So I just like, oh wow, something's really wrong with me.
Yeah. David, do you ever have any sleep issues with OCD? I'm seeing a couple of sleep questions have come up in the feed here where people are talking about OCD, intrusive thoughts makes it hard to fall asleep, or people who have to do certain rituals around sleeping. I've even seen people who are afraid, what if I have to go to the bathroom while I'm sleeping? So then they spend all sorts of time before going to sleep trying to make sure that their bladder's emptied and their bowels are emptied so that they won't have to wake up in the middle of the night and sleep. But then because of that, they don't sleep because they spend the whole night trying to make sure that they don't have to pee or anything like that too. Did that ever happen to you at all, or any sleep issues or anything?
Issues is, being on my phone at night, Googling for reassurance.
There we go. There we go. Yeah.
That's one. And I noticed the more lack of sleep I get, the higher my anxiety and intrusive thoughts are in general. So like, if I sleep for like 5-6 hours instead of normal 7 to 8, I'm going to have a way worse day. And it's almost automatically guaranteed in a way. Like I know that that's going to cause more anxiety and cause more OCD and thoughts in general. But yes, the reassurance is a big thing.
Yeah.
Like, I spend all night on my phone and I won't get off it.
I'm sure there's people on here who've done that. And what was it like to break that habit, to have to walk away from all that reassurance? How did that go for you, and what were your struggles with that?
It was tough because my main compulsions, I know I said I have more of a PRO, but my main compulsions revolve around avoidance and confession to my fiance with everything. Almost like, going to church and confessing your sins. That's what gives me kind of reassurance, and telling her all my thoughts I had and what I thought about today, or, if I'm rooting our relationship or things like that, or if I'm this type of terrible person. That's really what the compulsions revolved around, and breaking that reassurance that's the toughest part. That's where a lot of ACT helped me, and acceptance in general of just kind of dealing with it. And you actually helped me with those, with the SOSs. Those I use frequently a lot to really break that cycle of the reassurance as well.
Can you tell everyone what the SOS is in case they're not familiar? So
the SOS through the NoCD app is basically, when you're having the worst time with OCD and feeling like you need that reassurance, is basically Dr. McGrath's voice telling you everything is going to be, not reassuring like it's going to be okay.
Right. I don't say it's going to be okay. Purposely.
You don't say that.
Purposely don't say that.
I believe you've said we're just going to sit and deal with anxiety in general.
We can handle it, right? We're going to learn how to handle this. Yeah.
Yep. And it really helps tolerating. And that's actually what helped me a lot with dealing in life with OCD, because, the theme of POCD, if anyone doesn't know, that's called pedophile OCD. That one really stopped me from getting outside my home a lot during the beginning of this, and just fearing I'm going to have sick thoughts and things like that as well. And then it's nothing. Like I know there is no issue with that. And the SOS really helped me just deal with the racing of your mind and feeling accepting basically of things like that. But yeah, for everyone, it's basically just helping you handle and tolerate OCD and anxiety way more.
Good. Yeah.
And it's free for all users, I believe, too.
Yeah, it is. Even if you're not a part of NoCD teletherapy, you can use the therapy tools on the NoCD app, which you can download on the Google Play or iOS store, by the way, as well. So consider that, everybody. Think about it. Boy, more sleep questions. Let's talk a little bit more about sleep because that's just interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Really, really quick question, Pat.
sure.
Are they coming in live or are they coming in from previously? I just want to see if I can see the questions or like for questions.
They are just flying in as they come
they're
through.
coming in
So
live. Okay,
yeah. So if you want to, if you can see the feed there, go right ahead and check them out. And if you see one that you like, yeah, there they are. So if you see one that you want to address too, just grab it and let me know that you have one. But perfect. I want to address the sleep a little bit here.
Yeah.
If sleep is important to you, OCD is going to screw with it, right? That's what's going to happen. So if now you've got something in your head, sometimes people will even say to me, well, if I don't get enough sleep, I've seen people who don't sleep enough. I'm going to go crazy. I don't want to go crazy. I want to go psychotic, so I've got to sleep. And then OCD is going to be like, what if you don't sleep enough? Maybe you should do some compulsions around making sure that you sleep well, which are then going to keep you awake because now you got to do these compulsions and then you're not going to sleep enough. Then OCD is going to say, see, now look at you. You're up too late. Why are you up so late? Now you're not going to sleep well. And it's going to throw that at you, which is going to make you want to do more compulsions to make sure that you get enough sleep, which is going to actually keep you up longer because you're not sleeping because you're doing all these compulsions related to sleep. It's a never ending cycle. You can't satisfy OCD and you're never going to get enough sleep according to OCD. It's just not going to happen, and it's going to throw your sleep off longer and longer as well too. So for all of you who have this, really talk with your therapist about a good sleep schedule. What is good sleep hygiene? David, I think you're right. Don't take your phone to bed. You just can't, right? You gotta put it down and put it away. Yep. I talk about the fact that bed is for two things, sleeping and whatever fun intimacy kinds of experiences you and your partners would like to have. Otherwise, try to keep other things out of your bed. Don't read in your bed. Don't do homework in your bed. Don't do work in your bed. Don't do phone calls from your bed. Don't do texting from your bed. Don't research from your bed. Otherwise, your bed gets associated with all those things, and it can feel even more difficult to go into bed because now if you get really anxious when you're doing researching and you're doing it in bed, you can associate feeling anxious in bed because of all the research you've done. And now bed is an anxiety-provoking thing as well for people too. Yeah. So that's just something to keep an eye on for people.
And one thing that helped me with sleep in general too is just, melatonin, chamomile, natural sleep remedies too. So when I get to bed, I get tired automatically too before I start researching. I just want to talk about, I know you went on a little bit about like just feeling crazy as well and things like that.
Sure.
People, I think they get to the point as, I don't sleep enough. I'm going to go crazy. My whole thing was, what if I'm schizophrenic as well? This is very similar to it. I didn't have like a third cousin or something, and then you start panicking about that too. That's another issue I've had in general with just, relating to that craziness aspect too, and seeking reassurance and Googling. And I'm just going to look in the chats now that I actually can see them now. I couldn't find them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let me see here. I'm just going to pick one if that's okay.
Yeah, go right ahead. Mm-hmm.
I see here a lot of people. Delaney is talking about HOCD.
Sure.
Like I said, I had sexual intrusive thoughts, so those definitely relate to me.
Okay.
But yeah, that's totally common with, usually OCD is not always, but usually it's the range of harm, religion, or, sexual themes. Mine was sexual.
Yeah, that could be that taboo category kind of experience that people will have. Mm-hmm.
And that's where it really came in for me of, I totally get with, like, understand it. And I understand people worrying about the whole identity aspect. And, I would get HOCD thoughts about, I would go to the grocery store and like, what if I made out with that guy? What if I did this, that? I've been in a 10-year relationship with my fiance, but who knows? Like that's how crazy OCD would make me feel of just, not looking at my reassurance or not reassuring me and just saying, what if you're living a lie and things like that. And I think the best things to help with that is just ERP and ACT. Like, it's usually prescribed. You can even start small with ACT. One thing I would do is I would do a coloring book on OCD themes.
Fun.
There's one on Amazon I have. I think it's by Amanda Petrick, who was interviewed by the OCD Stories, OCD Stories, who's sponsored by OCD, I believe.
Yeah.
And
my buddy Stuart Ralph. Yeah.
Yeah, and he helped me as well a lot. I listen to him a lot, but
good.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to start ERP and get in the theme of basically, just feeling comfortable with ERP, starting small and then working more up. It's like lifting weights. You don't want to start with a 200-pound dumbbell. You want to start small with it because then you're just not going to come back to it in general. and then you lose motivation in general with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, Brett has a question here. It says, "Can you get unwanted arousal with ERP?" Well, I'm gonna let you probably say, yeah, of course, right? You're gonna get Why would you do that? Because you have OCD. And what does OCD give you? Unwanted everything, right? Unwanted thoughts, unwanted images, unwanted urges, unwanted arousal experiences, unwanted feelings, unwanted guilt, unwanted shame. All of those things are so amazingly common with obsessive compulsive disorder. So yeah, the second you experience something that you don't want, OCD is going to be like, oh, that's bad. Now you should do a ritual about that, or else it means that you liked it, you wanted it, and then you're a really horrible, bad person because of that. So
that's my biggest thing as well, of like, what if you're thinking it because you do like it? That's one of the things I challenge with, of like almost a moral way of it as well, of like, what if you're morally sick and that's why you're thinking that you do like it, that's why you keep thinking about it in general. But the more ERP in general basically just helps reduce it, and that's the biggest issue I had, where it's like I was having OCD, I want to say anywhere between maybe about 5 to 8 hours a day, and after my no CD, maybe about an hour or two at the most, like daily or weekly, really depending on how much I put into ERP in general, which is the best thing I would say to help.
Yeah. Well, good. Okay. All right. Let's go through some other things here. Well, great question here. And one thing that I've been doing tons of work with our NoCD therapists on to really reinforce this concept for this is this idea of mental compulsions like rumination or any form of internal dialogue following an intrusive thought seem to be automatic, which they are, and something I have no control over, which you don't. So how can I resist these mental compulsions? I would say the fundamental flaw in that question is, how can I resist them? Because the goal is not to resist them. The goal is not to care about them, even if they happen. Right?
Yeah, I would say almost just to accept them and use mindfulness as well. That's the thing I use the most of. You know, my biggest thing I like to relate is, you know, am I physically doing something? And I feel like this, not always physically, but, you know, this relates to, you know, when a lot of people have image-based OCD intrusive thoughts, you know, are you actually playing that out right now? Right in this moment, are you doing that exact thing with, you know, your friend, you know, your family? Are you actually, even with harm, are you actually murdering someone right now? Maybe not. I don't know. We're going to live with the uncertainty. That's the one thing I learned, basically, that really helps me in general.
So I'm going to go off of Justin's question here a little bit. And again, please speak to whatever you're comfortable with. And if we ever get to a point where you're not wanting to, that's fine. But
no problem. I'm an open book.
Okay. I think one of the things I hear a lot, especially for people who have, say, the pedophilic thoughts, is the idea that therapy is so difficult because you're asking me to accept the fact that I have these thoughts. And OCD wants to then say, if you accept the fact you have these thoughts, maybe that means you want or like these thoughts. What was it like for you to move away from trying to resist a thought or stop a thought or even challenge a thought with a compulsion to being okay with the fact that a thought was there and just letting it go?
I think here's the thing. This is the formula I kind of use. I think just getting to the comfort zone of ACT, I feel like ACT is hard to do at first, but I think once you get into ERP first and work your way up, the ACD and the confidence comes a lot more. Sure, maybe I'm a pedophile, maybe I'm not. Who knows? Who cares? Let's move on and play video games or go take a walk or whatever. But I feel like you're not going to get that as much without doing the ERP and doing that work first.
And I would agree. You know, and I've always said this: if you do excellent exposure and response prevention therapy, you're covering all of the ACT principles of acceptance of whatever's in your head, committing to living a value-based life. That's the whole goal of making sure that you're exposing yourself to difficult things and learning how to handle them. Now, I want to go back to pre-therapy David for a minute.
Yeah.
Imagine saying to pre-therapy David, by the end of therapy, you're not going to care if you have a pedophilic thought. What would pre-therapy David have said to that?
He would have said you're crazy.
Right. And I think, just again, thank you for your openness and your example.
Yeah.
Our goal was never to stop those thoughts from in your brain. Our goal was that you just don't have to pay any attention to them.
Yeah, I mean, and also I just want to say, even getting to therapy is like the hardest part. I just want to say, before I even got to know CD, like, I'm so happy they scheduled it and got me in so quick. I really was lucky at the time it happened. When I see something and notice something, I kind of want to fix it right away. And I know sometimes OCD takes years for people to actually like take a step with. And, with POCD, my first thought was, oh, well, I'm telling her all these thoughts I have. She's going to call that. Yeah, I mean, they're just going to raid my house.
Sure. Yeah, of
that
course.
was one of the first things. And it's like, once you get into there, getting to a therapist is the first step. And that is the main reduction, in my opinion, of everything, especially through NoCD, because they know what they're doing.
Yeah. So someone asked, so what does recovery look like? So what does it look like for you? How is your life different now after doing therapy for your OCD? I'm happy that no CD was involved in that, but for just living your life after OCD therapy, how is it different than your life before therapy?
I'm doing stuff, and that's the biggest thing, where it's, due to the pandemic, I lost my job at the moment. I used to be helping with foreclosed homes and making sure they were foreclosed on and things like that. You can't really do that when all foreclosures are
they're kind of off the table right now.
Yeah.
So
when I had all that free time, instead of actually doing things, I would just sit around and mope and lie around, and really just, I felt like I was doing something because I was waiting out for no CD, and I knew ERP would help it, but I didn't want to do it wrong. That was my biggest concern of, I'm going to mess it up and it's going to make my OCD worse. I really need to know how a professional is going to tell me how to do it. So I can't do this by myself. So I just have to deal with all the sadness and anxiety in general. But, I should have probably done some stuff. My biggest thing is start small. Like I said, small weights before you go on for the huge dumbbells. And now that I got to the top parts of my hierarchy basically out of it, which is, the top part of your plan with ERP, that's really when I saw results. Even before I finished the program, I kind of noticed that of, oh my God, I hit one of the highest things. If I can do this, this really shows like the OCD is wrong in a way. And I'm not going to tell you to tell the OCD that it's wrong, but it's kind of almost like you find the answer yourself in your own ERP, I believe.
You more learn that the OCD is wrong. You don't want any kind of internal fights with OCD, because OCD is going to win internal fights all the time, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to look at the chats as well, just because I know we've gotten so many.
Can OCD go dormant for a few months? I've seen that happen with people where maybe they see that OCD moves on to another thing, and it can slowly move into the other thing as it moves away from something else. But will it just go away? I haven't really seen that for people. It's an active work on getting it to move away through ERP. So
I'm gonna take this chat from Alexandra Marie. She
Please.
says, also with the example of ROCD, being not sure if you love the person you are in your life. Like, I cannot feel the love most people in my life anymore. It just makes sense. Yes. I also kind of had the theme of ROCD. It's a bit different the way I have it. I think it was based on something that actually happened in my life, where it's more of, I'm the problem, not my fiance. I've been with my fiance, Katie, for 10 years. We had one little issue and caused a lot of remorse and a lot of worrying and checking on myself that I'm doing everything wrong. So yeah, you're not going to, you're never going to love someone 100% like when you fall in love, in my opinion. Like the first day you meet someone. It's a whole nother feeling. In my opinion is, love, I heard this from the OCD stories with Stu, but love is a choice kind of in a way. Like it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
Like, if you're sticking with the person and really committing to it and you guys basically get along, it's more about a tolerance factor as well. How well can you tolerate people? You're not going to love someone like crazy every single day. That's just, can you be happy and ecstatic every single day? I'm not sure most people could.
Right. Yeah.
It shows you really where emotions can trick you in a way.
But OCD will tell you should, and that's why OCD is so unrealistic, because it sets up unrealistic goals, right?
Yes.
Like sometimes people with OCD hate getting a compliment because now that means they have to live up to that compliment every day from that person. If they're ever below that compliment, they fail, right? So
Yeah.
don't even compliment me, because now I don't want a new bar that I have to meet up to every single time.
And I literally just had this 2 weeks ago. I was talking to someone, and I was trying to not compulse about it. She was a female friend, and she called me a gem. I called her gem back out of niceness, and I thought, oh my God, I cheated on my fiance. My life
There you
is
go.
over.
Yes.
Oh my God, I didn't even mean to say it. Like I meant to do it out of politeness, but this is the worst thing ever. Like, how could I do that? And it's like, that's really where my OCD will come in with the ROCD, with like cheating factors in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gib Gob says here, Dr. McGrath, I keep reminding myself that the pain from resisting compulsions is recovery. I really like that. I think that's really good. It is difficult to stop doing compulsions, but it's also the most necessary thing in the world to overcome obsessive compulsive disorder as well, too. So, I like what Haley says here. I feel like I have to say I'm sorry all the time. That is such a common one in OCD. We're apologizing because what if I've offended you? So I should always say I'm sorry to people constantly, just in the off chance that I might have offended them, and that way I can apologize for it. I remember a patient I treated once, and I told them, after today, I will no longer accept any apologies from you. I refuse to accept it. So we get to the next day, and he said, oh, I'm sorry. And I just looked at him. I said, well, I don't accept that. And we had an 1.5 hour long standoff with him at the door of my office and me just sitting at my desk and him begging me, please accept my apology. Please, please. And I said, no, I will not accept your apology anymore. I am no longer accepting apologies from you. And finally he walked away, and it was very difficult for him. But the next day he came back and he said, that was really hard, but I know that I needed to do that. I need to learn that I can't apologize for everything anymore. So
I feel that, because that's how I'm with the confessing.
Yeah.
I need to tell people everything. One really good one I saw.
Sure. Take it.
I have real event OCD, and it's connected to POCD. So real event, don't know much about this as well, but I think this is really where my OCD came in from ROCD. Thinking I'm a terrible person, thinking I'm a terrible fiance.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is to look at the then, or look at the now instead of the then. That really helps me of, what is your progress now? What are you doing now in your life?
Yeah.
Because that really shows you, we're not born perfect. No one is.
Right.
It's basically about what the effort you put into things, I feel like, in a way of, just being a kind person in general, and just, being kind of value-based in general. And, if you compared every single thing from your past, you would be looking at, just a terrible report in general. Everyone would. That's why,
of course,
if you dig up someone's old tweets, what are you going to find? Terrible things in general.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's really, in my opinion, it's focus more on what am I going to do now based on it, instead of what I did that back then. That helps me at least a little bit.
Reminder, everyone, you're listening to the No CD Wednesday night webinar series. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. No CD is a downloadable app that you can get through the iOS or Google Play. You can also go to treatmyocd.com or nocd.com, and you can use any of those little buttons all over the place to link up with one of our care team members, who will then help you get set up with one of our teletherapy members should you need some therapy for your obsessive compulsive disorder in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. here in the US of A. And we will be working on the international piece. We get asked that question a lot here. It is something that we are we are working on to be able to go across the globe as well too. So hold tight, people. We're working on it. I promise. All right. David, did you have another one that you found that you wanted to address there?
I'm looking through them right now. Let me see. Mm-hmm. Okay, here is a good one. I feel so ashamed this is from Tony. I feel so ashamed to let anyone know or embarrassed if I let on that I'm doing a ritual. The only person that knows the issue is my daughter. Really, the one thing, just OCD in general, it's not something to be ashamed with, because this, not everyone has this, but this really helped me a lot. Again, I came in the beginning and I probably said I have Tourette syndrome. I twitch my head like that. I hum. A lot of people know what that is. It's basically involuntary movements I can't control. That surprisingly helped me with my OCD, because I almost think of OCD as involuntary thoughts I can't control. Why am I going to be mad at myself if I can't control what I'm doing? Why am I going to be mad if my heart is racing or upset that it's racing? Like, yes, it's a general panic in general, and I get that, but that's where a lot of the judging and ruminating comes from. You can't control every thought you have. Like, especially thought-based ones, like, everyone has god-awful thoughts. And one thing I heard somewhere was one of the phrases is, is that really the worst thing ever? That's one thing I compare it to with OCD thoughts of, well, what if I did that thing? Is that really the worst thing ever in the whole world?
According to OCD, it probably is, but yeah.
According to OCD, but that's where it really helps with, not feeling so ashamed. And again, the confidence is kind of the key to the ACT, and the key for the ACT is the ERP. They almost go in steps, I noticed, and that's really where it helped me out as well.
Yeah. Alexandra says, I've been in remission and doing a lot better lately with my OCD, but my harm OCD has been directed heavily at her new puppy. He's her therapy pup, so it really bothers her. Not sure what to do. I think back to when we had Jacqueline on, and if you go to our No CD YouTube page, you can go back and watch when I had Jacqueline on, another advocate of art. And she talked about now when she has OCD issues, and she walks down into her kitchen and there's her dog, and her OCD says, murder the dog. She looks at the dogs and thinks, oh, I must really love my dog if my OCD is picking on my dog, because my OCD just picks on the things that I love the most in my life. So that must mean I really love my dog. And that's how she looks at it, in the way that she's taken the Mickey out of OCD, as they would say in Ireland, and turned it around on itself to show it, hey, listen, stupid OCD, you're not going to ruin my relationship with my dog, and you're not going to make me stay away from my dog. So.
Yeah, and notice that's a really common thing with, the subtype kind of changing in a way of, mine really went from, POCD to ROCD. It's been more severe lately, but it also shows, I must really love my fiance. I must really cherish that the most, because why else would I have thoughts of I'm going to ruin everything in my whole life with her? And I noticed that a lot with the subtype changing.
Did you see one there at all that you wanted to grab?
I'm just looking through them, going back and forth.
Natalie says OCD wants to harm the most the person you love. Well, of course, that's because you love them the most. So that would be the person that, no, OCD is far less afraid that you would harm people you don't like at all, right? Because they don't count as much. You're very afraid of offended your fiance, not just a person that you work with as much or something like that. So obviously, it's going to go with that for sure. Someone says, what if I actually get aroused by a sexual intrusive thought? It scares the hell out of me. It made me think I believe these thoughts, and it set me back so much I don't know how to feel. So there's another piece. This idea that we're supposed to feel any way about a thought or something like that is interesting. So, we are going to get aroused by various types of thoughts, right? Those things are happening. We may have a groinal at various experiences and then want to say, well, I shouldn't have had that. That's bad. And now I need to punish myself for that. Well, I'd say that's ridiculous, right? You were going to throw something in on there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to relate to that one. That one I struggled with a ton. That was one of the biggest issues of, oh God, even just, intimacy in my life, that's where it would come out. Just panicking to do things because of, oh God, what if I like something like that? My whole thing is I go back to that involuntary versus voluntary. Yes, it's different with the groinal response, but it's am I going to look up things related that are immoral on purpose, that go against my values? And am I purposely going to look something up that I don't like unless it's for ERP? No, probably not. So that's how I dealt with that a lot more of, what am I doing right now at the moment? And I don't know, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. There's this notion that kind of comes down to a lot of these questions, which is the idea that thoughts are bad, images are bad, urges are bad. I would contend thoughts are thoughts, images are images, and urges are urges. There's nothing good or bad about them. And only we can judge for ourselves if we think they're good or bad or right or wrong. And we can punish ourselves for having something that we think are good or bad or right or wrong. But, I've used this example sometimes, David. I can think right now of walking out of my house, going across to my neighbors, pooping in a bag, setting it on fire, putting it at their front door, ringing the doorbell so they'll come out and stomp it out. As I'm running away from them, I will break the windows of my neighbor's car after that, and then I'll throw a Molotov cocktail into another neighbor's house as I'm running back home, all while evading every of them, none of them knowing that I did it. And look, I'm laughing. Look what I just did. What a great day that was. Now, am I a horrible person for just thinking those thoughts and laughing at it?
No, because in my opinion, a thought is not action. That's the one thing I really use a lot of. Am I actually, purposely doing what I'm thinking?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer, in my opinion, is no, at least from what I've learned through ACT as well.
And then people will say, but why then am I having this physical reaction or this groinal experience to this intrusive thought? Probably because you don't want to, and that's why you're having it. Because the moment you don't want to have that, your OCD is going to trigger things happening and then punish the crap out of you for having it. So
and I notice as well, when the brain really focuses on things, again, I didn't really have the groinal as much. Once in a while I had that, but I noticed for people who have that, the more you focus on an object of your body, you're going to feel some sensation in it. I've done this when meditating before OCD, and I've thought, focus on my hands will start to feel numb, basically. It's really just a sign of the brain just basically focusing so much on that thing and obsessing on that thing so much. So that's almost why you are getting the reaction, most likely.
There's a question that just came for you too. What's helped you differentiate between what is a thought and what is an action?
Again, this might not be the best answer for people who have real event OCD, but it's what is my life now? What am I doing right now in my life? If I'm having POCD, I feel like I probably would have tried to take a kid or something like that by now, or done something that illegal. If I had my ROCD was real, I wouldn't be with my fiance right now. I purposely would break up with her because it's telling me that I'm not the right person for her. That's one thing that has helped me in general, of just noticing, again, the thought's not in action. You can think, again, with harm, like you're going to kill your dog or cat or whatever, but are you actually doing it right now physically? Go try and do it, because you probably won't. It'll probably stop you. Not to say go kill them, but I feel like everyone has that response of I don't want to do it, so that's why you're having thoughts about it in general.
David, has your OCD ever told you the truth?
No.
No.
I probably can say that right off the bat. No.
Okay. So interesting. You have a disorder that has done nothing but lie to you. Mm-hmm. And the 70 plus people who are on this webinar tonight who have OCD have a disorder that does nothing but lie to them. Mm-hmm. And maybe the one fault of everyone who has OCD is they all still believe OCD anyway, even though it lies to them. I've been recently saying OCD is kind of like Charlie Brown and Lucy holding the football. Mm-hmm. And every time Charlie Brown runs at Lucy, he hopes this will be the time that she's going to leave the football down. And what does she do? Every single time she pulls the football away, right? And if Lucy is like OCD, every single time Lucy screws with you and screws you over, right? Never once does OCD say, oh, okay, we'll let you have a pass this time. No, OCD looks at everything you do through the fine-tooth comb lens of how could this be wrong, finds whatever could be wrong in any, even if you do something nice, OCD will say, yeah, it was nice, but it wasn't nice enough. It could have been nicer. And therefore, maybe you purposely held back from doing even the nicer thing because you're really a bad, awful, horrible person who doesn't want to do nice things for people, right? Mm-hmm. So.
And I feel like I dealt with that with ERP even too. Of, I do ERP afterwards and say, oh, maybe that's not enough ERP. Maybe you do need to go higher right away. And maybe that's something, a pedophile would be fine doing. So you're not doing the tough enough thing. That's what's also causing it as well. Which again, with people with ERP, I say, take your time, because it's really just getting started is the toughest part.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to look through some of these.
Sure. I'll share one story while you look through and find one.
Yeah.
If any of you are ever in downtown Chicago, you may encounter a homeless man who carries a 25-foot bamboo pole. And if you go up to him and say, "Sir, why are you carrying a 25-foot bamboo pole?" He will say, "Well, it keeps the elephants away." And if you say, "Sir, there's no elephants in Chicago," he will say, "The pole is working very well." That's what it's like to do a ritual.
So there's about like 2 or 3. There's a lot of good questions here.
Go ahead, David. Take them away.
I
hand it over to you for a while. I'm just going to sit back here and let you go.
I just pulled one up. Or there it is. Lisa Trujillo. Why do I have thoughts about telling off God? I don't like that. Okay. This, I know I don't have Scroop, but I had existential, so I feel like I can kind of relate to that. And again,
similar.
Majority of my OCD is, why do I hate things I value so much in general? Why does my OCD do that? Because that makes no sense. It goes in every direction of, I have thoughts about, what if my fiance is not good enough for me? What if I'm not good enough for her? What if I mess this up and I'm the issue overall? Why am I thinking in my head, maybe I'll say a rude comment about her or something like that, even though I probably won't. Maybe because I cherish her so much. Why am I having, a piece of OCD thought about maybe a friend or family member or something like that, or, a sexual intrusive thought? Well, because I value them. So in my opinion, you're having these thoughts because you value it and you're scared you don't value it enough. That's where I feel, at least. I think it's almost like you can find a reassurance in OCD itself of, the more thoughts you have about something, almost the more you care about it in a way. And that's why you're so worried about it. It's like having, it's almost like having a puppy or a baby. You're so scared they're going to be harmed or hurt that you feel like you have to watch them like a hawk 24/7 in a way. And there's a couple more ones. Let me see here. Here's one, Angela. For POCD, I feel guilty in being more afraid of consequences than the act. I was never a kids person, so I feel wrong for having misplaced values. I have POCD and I have 0 kids right now, so you're not alone with that. I don't have any kids, but I have friends, family members, things like that, and that's where the OCD can spawn off of. So you really shouldn't feel bad for it. Again, ERP is going to help with that confidence of, that's just my OCD in general, and accepting it more through ACT, which are all available through an OCD therapy. Through a therapist, they can help with a lot of that. And let me just look through some more of these.
There's one for you here, David.
Yeah. I was just going to read that one.
Okay, go for it.
David, how do you deal with examples of people in society that are pedophiles? It would seem that they would be a trigger. Yes, they are a trigger. Here's a great ERP I did. I looked up a list of pedophiles in my local area and kind of just did a script of, I'm on there. They just don't have me updated yet. I'm on that list. A lot of times with ACT in general of that is, I don't, not to compare people and things like that, but like I take that thing again of, is that really the worst thing ever? I sometimes think, am I Hitler? Like, did I kill billions and billions of people? No. So am I really the worst person ever? Is that really the worst thing? And yes, that can help with it. Scripts can help with it through ERP. Photos can help with it. A coloring book can help with ERP. Like I said, it's just really about working your way up. And yes, I would say, the more you compare yourself to that and feel comfort with the acceptance of the uncertainty, that's the more progress you see. And I'm going to read another one, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
From JP Dole, I found that it is easier to challenge something that is not true than to challenge something that is factual. For instance, there are some facts concerning sleep that disturb me. So here's an issue I had with challenging. This was one of the biggest things. I would debate myself consistently before I really got to it. And
I'm sure that was really helpful and turned into great experiences.
Listen, right? I love politics too. I'm a big lefty. I love to debate people all day long. And I love to debate myself on why I'm wrong and the OCD is right. And the debating is where it would spiral. The one thing is, not always to distract. Sometimes that does help, but like the moving on and accepting can help with basically the debating and the challenging yourself. And the more you do things such as, reassure and look into things like answers on Google for things, that's where you'll feel like, oh, well, it told me that, so I have to believe every single thing by that. So the less you reassure, the more you try to live life to the fullest. That helps with the challenging and getting your mind off it, along with, again, I'll say it, ERP, ACT, two things that help the most with OCD. ACT, what is ACT? ACT?
Yeah, I put on there acceptance and commitment therapy.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad you said that. I just got a book on that. It's basically like mindfulness of just accepting what's happening, and not really judging your thoughts or judging yourself. Just like, you wouldn't judge a friend if they tell you something personal.
Right.
So you need to learn to not judge yourself as much. Can you give me an example of ERP done wrong?
Well, for me, that would be providing safety behaviors. We would have people do compulsions, or
Yep.
we might catch the physical behavior that you're doing as a compulsion, but not the mental compulsion you're doing. So it really involves the therapist working with you to catch all the different ways compulsions are being done. Because if you do exposure response prevention therapy, but you're doing compulsions along with it, then you're not really getting the benefit of it. Or let's say you take a benzodiazepine right before the session, say, all right, I took my benzo, I'm ready to now deal with everything. Well, the whole goal of the therapy is to purposely create discomfort so that people learn how to handle discomfort. If now you do what you can to get rid of any discomfort before we even have the chance to do it, it doesn't really work at all.
You literally took one of the examples I used. So like I take as needed prescribed medication for anxiety in general, because most people have types of anxiety with OCD. I was doing it not all the time, but sometimes if I really did a hard ERP, I'd be like, oh, well, I did great. So I'm going to reward myself by calming my brain down and not dealing with this anxiety in general. That was one step which I noticed spiraled it a lot. So, taking a benzo before is just the same as taking a benzo right after, because you're not dealing enough with that discomfort. The more you tolerate that, the easier things will get, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, Natalie says, David, how often do you ask your fiance for reassurance, and what does she do when you do?
So this is just like the way I like to use this is like an alcoholic, enabling and saying, hey, can I just have one beer? Can I just go out to the bar one time with the boys? Please, please, please. That's one thing where we've really worked on that in general. It was way worse before I started No CD. Now compulsions are probably about one time or twice a week. And she's working on herself of not giving me an answer, but I'm a pusher. That's the problem. I bug people. I'm very persistent. So that's more the issue. She's doing what she's doing, but I blurt things out. I can't keep secrets very well. But yeah, I mean, before I would say it was into every day. I'd wait till she come home from work and I'd save up all the OCD thoughts and confess them all and feel reassured that way. Compared to now, it's like maybe one time a week I'll do it if I really think something's bad, and I try not to. I try to share more of the context instead of the content. That's one thing I also took from Stuart as well from OCD stories.
Someone asked if there's any therapy finding how to solve OCD. Not that I know of. No one has figured out solving it. I don't know that there's anything to solve, really. I mean, I know there is some work being done on looking at it from a genetic point of view. Maybe in 500 years, they'll be able to do a little brain scan that will suddenly just change the way your brain functions. I really think we're hundreds of years away from figuring that out, though. I don't see that happening anytime soon for anybody. The best therapy we have right now isn't about solving OCD. It's about getting to the point of not even giving a crap what OCD throws at you and just being able to move on and live your life. That's where you really want to be able to go. So. Any other ones there, David? We're getting to about 5 minutes before we're done, so I want to give you the opportunity if there's any other things on there.
Here's a good one with Shell Torres. Can you list different mental compulsions? Yes, I can. I have majority of pure O, other than the whole confession thing. But my biggest thing is I wouldn't use I would consistently try and stay off social media because I didn't want to see people's kids' pictures of it. I wanted to avoid as much as possible. I didn't want to see, any type of person I found attractive at all, because like it would spike my ROCD. Like, I'm a god awful person, for just thoughts in general. So yeah, avoidance is a huge one. I talking to yourself and reassuring yourself in a way. I would get to a point where it almost became unhealthy of saying it's not me, it's my OCD. I really try to
that does become a compulsion after a while. So that's not the end all be all of treatment by any means. Yeah.
Yeah. I took that one from a TV show called Peer. But I mean, it's really like the more and more things you purposely do on purpose, that's where the mental compulsions are.
Yeah.
There's a difference between purpose and involuntary. It's how I see it.
Right. There's prayer. Prayer can be a mental compulsion, right? Yeah. If you're praying to pray, that's one thing. But if you're praying as a compulsion to neutralize an intrusive thought about some religious thing that you had, or a blasphemous thought, or whatever it was, then it's a compulsion. It's no longer a prayer. Some people do counting. They count the steps they take, the numbers of words in their sentences, stairs. So those would be mental compulsions. And we can do response prevention for that, right? Like if you walk up the stairs and you count the stairs, I'd have you go back down and walk up again, but this time count random numbers instead of the actual numbers that you counted. And then after a while, that just gets in the way of your ability to even be able to count the stairs whatsoever. So that could be too. Yeah. So, David, what would be some of your final kind of advice to everybody who's here today? Again, as someone who's gone through the therapy, and wonderful that the NoCD therapy was so helpful to you. I think it's great to have people on who have gone through NoCD who can talk about the fact that our protocol can be very helpful to folks. And what is your kind of parting words of wisdom and advice for the audience tonight?
The biggest thing I would say is challenge yourself, because I look at it a lot like, it may be mental health, but it's very similar to weight loss. I don't think you're going to make progress unless you challenge yourself with it. Like basically for me, it's just, do something. There's a big difference of taking a walk a day compared to not taking a walk ever again. Even if you're doing little ERP, little steps are still like great steps. You're not going to get everything right away down, so don't feel too discouraged, but try and get a little slight bit of motivation just to do something. It doesn't have to be therapy, doesn't have to be, doing exposures right away, but the littlest minor things can help right away. As long as you continue, you will see progress, in my opinion. Yeah,
that's great. Well, thank you once again, David.
Thanks
I really appreciate your time being here today. Our goal in anyone we work with is to recognize that OCD will do whatever it can to tell you that you are wrong, you are bad, you are the worst things that you could possibly be. And Sarah walks on there about stigmatizing language. OCD loves stigmatizing language. OCD loves to say to you, you might be crazy, you might be psychotic, you might be whatever it would be. And we want people to be able to walk away from that and to be able to recognize, I just am what I am, right? I don't know what the heck normal is. I don't know what's right or wrong or good or bad necessarily in the grand scheme of everything that I have to be the judge and the jury for. I can sit with whatever it is that pops into my head, and I can learn to be okay with it. And when we do that, we can really overcome and defeat OCD. So David, thank you for being a great example of that. We really appreciate you being here tonight. The audience loved you. And
thanks for having me again.
We'll be back again next week, everyone. Thanks again. Welcome to all of you who are starting NoCD therapy. I saw some of you on the list there. We're glad to have you, and we look forward to working with you. And for the rest of you, if you need us, please reach out to nocd.com or treatmyocd.com. We're here for you.
Or even the NoCD app. I'm on there too.
Yeah, and go on the NoCD app. And David's one of our advocates on the app, so that's great. So awesome. Have a great night, David. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Great to see you all.
Bye.
Thanks.